If everything seems to have ended, perhaps it is just beginning. If you have been left in silence, if someone who seemed to be your soul in another body simply drifted away, disappeared, ignored your messages, you need to hear this now, because none of this is by chance. This painful silence may be exactly the turning point that the universe is using to guide you to your true healing, and perhaps to your reunion with your twin flame. Yes, I am talking to you who feels you lost something that was more than love, to you who doesn't understand how someone who looked at you as if they could see your soul now acts as if you don't exist, to you who wonders every day, why? Today we are going to talk about that, about why twin flames disappear, cut off contact, and seem to turn their backs, just when everything seemed about to bloom. What is behind this silence? Why does it hurt so much? And what is the universe trying to show you at this moment? If this has touched your heart, I invite you to subscribe here to the channel, turn on notifications, and share this video with someone who also needs to hear this message. Take a deep breath and get ready. What you are going to hear today is not just any content. It is a calling. It is an answer that your soul is ready to receive. You are not crazy for feeling all of this. You are not exaggerating. You are not tripping for believing that connection was different from anything you've ever experienced. You know what you felt. You know what you saw in the other person's eyes. You know that for a few moments, it seemed like everything made sense. And you also know that when all of this disappeared, it was as if the ground had vanished beneath your feet. Many people try to rationalize the bond of twin flames. They say it was just intense passion, that you idealized it, that the other person never felt the same. But inside you, there is something that resists these superficial explanations, because your soul knows, and what the soul knows cannot be unlearned. But then why, if this bond is so deep, did the other person disappear? Why did communication stop? Why did silence come like a whirlwind after so much giving, so much exchange, so many signs, so many soul encounters? These are questions that burn in the heart. And not just because of the absence of the other, but because this kind of distancing touches on old wounds, rejection, abandonment, insecurity, the feeling of being invisible, as if, once again, you were giving too much and not being reciprocated. And that is devastating. Because with the twin flame, what is lived is not shallow. It is a connection that transcends the body, the mind, dreams, and intuitions. It is as if the universe introduced this person to you as part of a greater plan. And now, suddenly, they have vanished, cut off contact, ignored, distanced themselves, or even ended everything abruptly, coldly, without explanation. The pain of this cut is almost inexplicable. It is not just the loss of the other. It is as if something inside you has been ripped away. And it is at this point that many crumble. Because they do not understand the reason for this harsh, absolute silence, coming precisely from someone who seemed to have recognized your soul. It is as if everything were a mistake, as if it had never been real. But what if the silence is part of the process? What if this distancing is, in fact, a kind of spiritual test? What if the universe is leading you to something much greater than your mind can comprehend right now? The truth is that behind this silence, there is something sacred, something that most do not see because the pain blinds. But if you have the courage to look with the eyes of the soul, you will realize that nothing you lived was in vain. You are being led to something profound, to a reunion that begins from within, to an awakening that only happens when everything seems lost. So, breathe. You are not alone. And this absence, this silence, is precisely what will teach you to hear what your soul has to say. When the twin flame cuts off contact and enters silence, what happens inside us is more than a romantic mourning. It is an internal implosion. It is as if the soul goes into crisis, as if it were ripped away from itself. And no matter how cruel this may seem, This pain has a profound purpose: to break the illusions that still keep us trapped in neediness, fear, and control. The silence of the twin flame is not punishment. It is not disdain. It is not lack of love. It is a portal. But to see this, one must first traverse the confusion that the ego creates. Because the ego does not understand silence. The ego interprets absence as rejection, cutting off as abandonment, distancing as humiliation. And then it starts to scream, "Why did this happen to me? What did I do wrong? How can someone who loved me just walk away?" This is where many get lost, because they try to interpret a spiritual process through the lenses of the ego. They try to understand a movement of the soul with the tools of common emotional logic. But twin flames do not operate on this common plane. They are mirrors. And because they are mirrors, what happens between them is intensified to the maximum. There is no hiding. There is no pretending. Everything that is misaligned in one appears in the other. Everything that is unhealed is laid bare. That is why, many times, the phase of intense connection between twin flames is followed by a sharp distancing. It is as if the soul says, "You saw the mirror, now go heal yourself." But the ego does not understand this. The ego wants continuity, security, control. The ego wants to ensure the other is close, even if it means suffocating the process. And it is in this clash between soul and ego that suffering is born. Because in truth, the silence of the twin flame is not saying, "I don't love you." It is saying, "I still can't stay. I need to find myself before I can truly find you. I need to dive into my chaos to discover who I am." This silence is an internal scream, a scream that the other person may not even know how to translate, but that their soul understands very well. And ironically, it is in this moment of pain and absence that the universe listens to us the most. Because it is there, at the bottom of the abyss, that the soul finally surrenders. And in this surrender, transformation begins. Many believe that when the twin flame disappears, everything is over. But the truth is that this distance can be the beginning of something sacred. Because the true reunion of twin flames does not happen when they are physically together. It happens when both recognize each other wholly, separately, when they stop projecting their salvation onto each other. When they realize that the mission is not to have the other, but to be what their own soul came to be. Silence, then, gains another meaning. It transforms into a calling, into a response, into a portal of healing. Absence does not mean end. It means preparation. And no matter how much it hurts now, this moment is polishing you. Nothing is stagnant. Even if everything seems frozen, the spiritual plan is in motion. Even if the other doesn't speak to you, their soul feels. Even if the other seems distant, something invisible still connects you. But this thread is no longer sustained by attachment. It is nourished by truth, by healing, by surrender. The soul that loves knows how to wait, but it does not wait with anxiety. It waits with awareness, because it understands that true love does not require constant presence. It requires truth, and truth sometimes needs silence to reveal itself. It is in this space between one absence and another that love is purified. It is there that it ceases to be neediness and becomes light. So, if your twin flame has distanced themselves, do not despair. There is something much greater happening behind the scenes of the invisible, something that only silence can prepare, and something that only an awakened soul can recognize. When the soul enters silence, it is because the time for truth has come. Not the truth of the other, but yours. The truth of who you are without needing to be loved. The truth of what your energy carries when you are not trying to be chosen. It is in this place of emptiness, of not knowing, of not controlling, that the soul begins to reorganize. Because the silence of the twin flame is, many times, the only space where real healing can happen. During the intense bond, it is as if a part of you had been pulled out. You saw yourself in the other. You surrendered. You expanded. But you also got confused. You lost your boundaries. Maybe you gave too much. Maybe you felt you needed to prove you were worthy of being loved. And it is there that the universe intervenes, with firmness, with precision, with silence. Because the reunion between twin flames is not about filling each other's absence. It is about learning to no longer abandon oneself for anyone. This period of distance is, in fact, a sacred retreat. It is as if the soul is being called to return to the inner temple, that place where there are no masks, expectations, or needs. Only presence, awareness, truth. And for this, the universe removes everything that distracted you from yourself. The messages, the answers, the constant contact, the energetic dependence, the obsession with the return, because you do not need the other to return. You need to return to yourself. The silence of the twin flame is a clean mirror, without noise, without interference, without distractions. And what it shows many times is painful. The image of someone who has forgotten themselves, desperately trying to be remembered by someone. But when you stop chasing the other and start walking in your direction, something changes. The silence no longer hurts. It begins to heal. Absence no longer paralyzes. It begins to teach. You start to realize that the love you thought came from the other has always been pulsating within you. It is at this point that the inner reunion happens, not as magic, but as a return home, the home of the soul, the home of truth, the home where you discover that you no longer need to beg to be seen because now you see yourself. And when this happens, everything changes energetically. You stop emitting the signal of neediness. You stop vibrating at the frequency of despair, and you begin to sustain the vibration of wholeness, maturity, true surrender. Surrender is not giving up on the connection. It is releasing control over it. It is stopping demanding that it happen your way, in your time, under your conditions. Surrender is when you accept that love is free, and that, if it is true, it will know how to return. But that, even if it doesn't return, it has already fulfilled a divine purpose to awaken your soul. This is the moment when you stop being just someone who loves and transform into someone who vibrates love. Love that does not cling, love that does not demand, love that does not force, love that supports, love that understands that everything is in motion, even when it seems still. And it is precisely this frequency that begins to reorganize the reality around you. Because now the universe is dealing with someone who does not seek love as salvation, but as expression. And what is healed in you reverberates in the other. The energy of your silent surrender crosses dimensions and can indeed touch the soul of your twin flame, wherever they may be, even if they say nothing, even if they do not respond, even if they seem far away. Because when you heal within yourself the illusion of separation, you begin to anchor the truth of spiritual union, not an idealized, needy, romantic union, but a mature, conscious, free union. A union where two souls do not complete each other, but meet already whole. This is the foundation of true reunion, and this is what silence is trying to teach you. There is a moment in the journey of separation between twin flames when everything transforms. It is not when the other returns. It is not when the message finally arrives. It is not when the physical reunion happens. It is when you return to yourself. This is the turning point. The moment when, after diving so deeply into absence, pain, and silence, you realize that you haven't lost the other. You were lost to yourself. And this return is silent, almost invisible to the outside world. But inside, something grand happens. The soul awakens, and with it, your true strength awakens, your personal power, your connection to the higher self. That part of you that doesn't get confused, doesn't cling, doesn't despair. The higher self, is your point of origin. It is where your truth resides. It is who you were before the wounds, the rejections, the fears, and it is in this self that you begin to rebuild yourself. In this reconnection with your essence, you stop seeking love to fill voids and start living as someone who is love. You stop chasing validation. You stop comparing yourself. You stop trying to fix the other so they will stay. And you begin to take responsibility for your own energy, for your own vibration, for your own path. And something magical happens. The more you heal, the more magnetic you become. Your energy changes. Your presence changes. Your vibration aligns. And you start to realize that you don't need to chase anything, because everything that is true starts to align with you naturally. This is the power of the awakened soul. It is the power of someone who no longer lives in function of the absence of the other, but from the abundance that springs from within. It is the power of someone who has learned to listen to silence as the language of the soul. Someone who understands that love does not exhaust itself. It transforms. And in this new state of consciousness, you no longer need the twin flame to return to feel whole. You desire the reunion, yes, but not as an escape. You desire it because you understand that your journey is deep, divine, complex. But you know that this reunion will only be true if it comes from wholeness, not from need. From this new place, you begin to honor your own presence. You take care of your energy. You protect your space. You listen to yourself before listening to the world. You begin to live with intention, with clarity, with depth. And the most surprising thing is that, in this state, your connection with the twin flame does not break. It refines. Because now you no longer vibrate in the despair of, why did he, she pull away? But in the serenity of, what has this experience taught me about myself? You no longer define yourself by the presence or absence of the other. You anchor yourself in yourself. And in this anchoring, you become such a strong, luminous presence that you begin to impact everything around you, including the soul of your twin flame. And this is where many things begin to change without you forcing anything. Because by stepping out of the frequency of lack and entering the vibration of spiritual sovereignty, you allow the other to awaken as well, in their own way, in their own time. You no longer need to energetically shout. You no longer need to demand, insist, convince. Your healing becomes a silent invitation, and this invitation reaches the other soul like a whisper, like an echo, like a memory of what was lived at the deepest level. Some reunions happen soon after this moment. Others take longer. And there are also those who do not return physically, but remain spiritually connected for life. But in all cases, what matters is that you have returned home. You have risen again. You have remembered who you are. And now you can live your mission, your light, your path, with or without the other by your side. And it is precisely at this point that love ceases to be suffering and becomes strength. You realize that it was never about having someone. It was about becoming someone. Someone capable of loving without losing themselves. Someone who doesn't wait to be chosen because they have already chosen themselves. Someone who, even feeling longing, no longer abandons themselves. You have awakened. And those who awaken do not go back. Those who find themselves do not diminish. Those who claim their power change their own reality. This is the true purpose of the connection with the twin flame, to awaken your higher self, to remind you of what you came here to do, to lead you back to the love that does not fade, does not depend, does not sicken. You are now a channel of conscious love. You are now a sustaining presence. You are now a living soul, vibrating what the world needs. And whatever comes after this will be a bonus from the divine. It will be a reflection of your vibration. It will be a response to what you have become. Because love has never left. It was only taking you back to yourself. By now, perhaps you have already realized that the journey with your twin flame was never about the other. It was about you, about your soul, about everything that still needed to emerge, be seen, be healed, be freed. You went through the fire of absence. You were tested in silence. You descended into the darkest basements of your emotional history. You found yourself without answers, without direction, without control. But you survived, and now you are here, more awake, more whole, more true. Perhaps the person you love is still distant. Perhaps there are still unanswered questions. Perhaps there is still longing, memory, desire. But there is also something that wasn't there before: awareness. You are no longer in the same internal place where you started. Something has changed. You have changed. And this, by itself, is already a spiritual victory. Because when you change, everything changes. You no longer need to beg for presence. You no longer need to prove that you deserve love. You no longer need to reduce your intensity to fit into someone's absence. Now you understand that silence is not the end. It is the womb where the new is conceived. It is where the old dies so that the true can be born. And if this connection with your twin flame is real, and if it is part of your greater destiny, it will find a way back. Not because you forced it, but because you sustained the truth. But if, for some reason, this reunion does not come in the way you envisioned, even so, you will have won. Because you will have been reborn from yourself, and no one can take that away from you. Your light no longer depends on others. Your self-love is no longer hung on returns. You are now a beacon, and beacons do not move. They stand firm, they guide, they remain. So from here, you can choose. You can continue vibrating neediness, or you can vibrate presence. You can continue stuck in the pain of separation, or you can honor the sacred that has already happened. You can keep waiting, or you can start living. You are free, and above all, you are love. Not a love that begs, but a love that overflows. So if this message touched your heart, I invite you now to subscribe here to the channel, not out of vanity, but because this space was created for souls in the process of awakening, like yours. Turn on notifications to continue receiving messages that speak to your soul, and share this video with someone who needs to hear this. You could be the channel through which light reaches another person's life. And if you felt that this content was made for you, I want to invite you to comment below. I choose my inner reunion. Write this down. Affirm this decision. Mark this moment in time. Because sometimes a simple gesture of awareness opens a new cycle. You are not alone. You never were. Your soul was guided here because it was ready to remember. And now that it remembers, there is no way to go back to sleep. The journey with your twin flame may have started in romantic love, but it is leading you to something much greater: the union with your essence, the sovereignty of your spirit, the mission of your soul. And in the end, perhaps this is the true reunion, the one that happens when you finally find yourself, because the other may have gone silent. But now it is your soul that speaks. And when it speaks, the entire universe listens. If something in you was awakened today, remember, silence was not the end. It was the call, and you answered.